Joe, thanks for your time, as always. First hiccup under Ben Stokes last week at Lord's. How do you reflect on that performance, and what has been the message for this week?
Yeah, it's been quite pretty basic, to be honest. I think we just haven't executed as well as we could do. I think if we're being honest, and this isn't an excuse, it was an important toss to win. I think the surface changed quite drastically after that first day. And I don't think we executed as well as we could have across the board, really. And credit has to go to South Africa. They took full advantage of the conditions that were presented to them, and they outplayed us. And I think it's, you've got to be honest, and you've got to sometimes take that on the chin when you get outplayed by a side. But I don't think it changes anything in terms of the way we approach this week. I think we've come a very long way in a short space of time as a test team, where we were at the start of this year. The way we played those first 4 test matches of the summer, I think, is a massive stride forward, and it's really important that we continue to keep working at that good work that we did, the changes that we've made in terms of our mindset, how we want to put sides under pressure, and really hammer that home this week when the opportunity arises.
It was a rare double blip for you. If I show you your second innings dismissal to Lungi and Gidi, there was a moment where you said, oh no, almost actually before the ball found the edge. There is a moment when a batsman knows that what is coming.
Yeah, I thought it was quite a nice bit of ball, and he bowled a lot of wobble seam. He's obviously gone wide the crease there and tried to swing it. It's just held, but I think the thing that did me is it felt like it just stood up a little bit more, bounced a bit more, and I threw my hands at it trying to cover the bounce, which is exactly what you don't want to do. It's one of those reactions that, as a player, you're sometimes out of control of, and it's a mistake that I'm generally pretty good at not making. But every now and again you do make them. You hope that you play and miss at those deliveries, and you learn from it and move into the next delivery. But on that occasion, just didn't quite manage to keep my bat out of the way.
How good is this South African attack in the round?
No, it's a very good attack. It's got pace. They've got variety in terms of different angles, guys offering different skill sets. So it is very good. But again, when you've got different angles, different guys trying to operate side, you get different scoring opportunities. And I think it's really important as a batting group that you look at that and you look at where you can try and dissect them and pick them apart and take the opportunities to score and put pressure back on them. So, of course, they'll be full of confidence coming into this week. They should be after the way they played. Sorry, but again, I think it's really important that we come into this game looking at every opportunity we can to score in a controlled manner and really look to put them back under pressure when we can.
If I show you a bit of Heinrich Nortje in that second innings, there was a particularly quick spell after lunch where he was touching upwards of 95 miles an hour. I think more than anything, spectators are fascinated by how you face fast bowling. Basically 95 miles an hour, you're getting 0.4 of a second, which is an eye blink, really. Just try and explain to people at home how you go about training to play bowling of that pace.
I think there's 2 really important parts to it. Is controlling certain shots and making sure that in practice you feel like when the ball's a certain length, you're making good decisions constantly, and you don't need to train that by facing 95 miles an hour all the time. That's just by repetition, time and time again, making good decisions to the right balls, and by practicing that, when you are under pressure, you are facing high pace, you make those decisions on instinct. I do think there's an element as well where you need to practice against that pace. You don't need to do it for long periods of time, but you just need to ready yourself for it and make sure that you've come across it beforehand, and that your body is reacting how you want it to, just so that you're not caught off guard when you get out there. But ultimately, you've got to trust all the work that you do leading into the game. And then I think it's really important that you go out there looking to try and score, and you're looking to put pressure back on them, because I think when you're tentative, your feet don't move well. You can get caught on the crease, and that brings them in control of things. So as much as you can, you're always looking, keep them off those difficult areas to play. And as well, sometimes if they're going 5-6 and over, it's hard for the captain to keep them on. So I think you're trying to find a balance all the time of managing that well. And fair play, bowled some very good deliveries in there. But it was such a shame that Johnny got a feather on that one. I thought there was a passage of play where he'd started to put him under a bit of pressure, and if he'd have just managed to get through there, then it could have looked very different for him and that spell of bowling.
Is he as quick as you faced? And if not, who would be the top 2 or 3 in terms of pure pace that you've faced throughout your career?
Yeah, he'd be. I think Mark Wood's up there as well, obviously, in terms of consistently bowling at high pace. There's that series Mitchell Johnson played in Australia. That's the fastest that I've come across. But I think the difference being is different actions sometimes are harder to pick up. I think with Nokia, he obviously releases the ball at high speeds, but he's got a really nice action. You get a good sight of the ball, so that does help a little bit. Whereas someone like Johnson, you lose sight of the ball, it goes behind his body, and then you're sort of searching for it in an area where you think he's going to release it from. So there are different ways that it can make the mind feel a little bit quicker, and different angles as well. But I'm sure he's got a good bit of gas behind him.
I was going to mention that, actually, because it's not always the quickest bowlers who appear quick to the batsman. If I show you a couple of deliveries, for example, that Kagiso Rabada bowled at you in the Lord's game that had you hopping around. Rabada through the air wouldn't be as quick as Nortje, but he's got a very high release point and gets steep bounce.
Yeah, he does. You're making me feel really good going into tomorrow, by the way. Show me get out, get smashed on the hand twice. But yeah, exactly that. I think whenever there's movement up, or whether it's up and down movement or lateral movement, it does make bowlers feel that little bit quicker because more's happening. So you feel like you've got more to contend with. But that's where it's really important that you do the work beforehand. As you mentioned, Rabada's got a very high release point. You know that there's going to be occasions when he's going to get that steep bounce. But with that can create good scoring opportunities. If he does drift into the channel, you might be able to get your cut away from a slightly fuller length and score in different areas to how you might try and score against someone like Nokia. So I think it's just trying to figure out what the challenge is presented against you, and then how you're going to counter it and put things back in your favour.
Well, I'll show you a graphic now that will make you feel a bit better ahead of tomorrow's game. That really just shows your central importance to this team. And this is since the start of 2019. In games that you've won and drawn, you've averaged over 70 and 60. In the matches you've lost, that average drops right down. Now, clearly that shows, how important your runs are to the team. But I suppose from your perspective, it's important not to walk out feeling that responsibility, because one of your strengths over the years is that you never, to my mind at least, have looked as if you've batted with the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Well, I just try and look every time you walk out to bat, it's an opportunity to go score runs for England, to try and put your team in a dominant position or to go and win a test match. And, that's how I've tried to look at things especially over the last couple of years, and how I'll try and look at things moving forward. There are games when you walk out there and you don't feel $1 million, and your feet do get stuck, and you just got to try and find a way to get through that period. But I think the more you play, the more you know, the more time you spend out there. You get used to the surface, the surroundings, the situation of the game. Things do get easier. And one of the great things about test matches is you never really have that pressure of having a score at a certain rate. Or there are times where you can just suck it up a little bit. You can try and bat at the other end, be smart, rotate the strike, work with your partner down the other end, build that partnership, and sort of share that responsibility. And that's the mindset I've generally had over the last couple of years. It's worked nicely for me. I hope by saying all this now, it doesn't come back and bite me for the rest of the summer. It's certainly helped me having that sort of, right, how can I affect this game? How can I contribute? And how can we either set this thing up for the bowlers to go and win it, or for us to chase it down?
And one thing you've tried to do is buy into the new bold approach that Ben Stokes is obviously trying to get the team to play into. I think you're striking at 73 this summer. And if I show you some of your batting right at the start against Keshav Maharaj at Lord's the other day, this is in the first 8 balls, actually. You down the pitch at him, then you have this rather unusual, I don't know what you call it, some kind of sweep shot, and then a reverse sweep, all within the first 8 balls. Clearly you are trying to buy into what Ben is wanting. Is there a danger, though, that pushes you slightly out of your comfort zone, given, that you're already a fantastic player in any case?
I don't think so. I think, again, it's about being smart and managing the situations. I came in at that point, Maharaj had just got a wicket. He got 2 wickets, and he's obviously found a nice rhythm, found a nice length. How can I put pressure back on him? How can I get him off that area? How can I get him to bowl somewhere else? And try and upset his rhythm? How can I then become in control of things and manipulate the field? And these are all shots that I practice a lot. They're all ones I feel very confident with. So it doesn't feel like a risk. It might look like it at times. It might be slightly unconventional. But I feel in control of those shots. So as much as I do playing a forward defence to a similar length ball. So I think having that clarity of understanding what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make things easier for myself, easier for the group, and put pressure back on the bowler. And it might look like a little bit of a risk at the start of my innings, but it doesn't feel that way, and it might make things a lot easier for myself and the rest of the guys moving forward. So when you weigh all that up, in my mind, that seems a smart way to go about it.
Final question to make you feel even better. You must like coming to Emirates Old Trafford. 254 here against Pakistan, averaging 65. Pitch seems to suit you.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, the last 2 games I've played here, the white ball games, I've got 1 and 0. So hopefully that means I'm due and I can make the most of it this week. But I think as a Yorkshireman, you always want to come to Lancashire and score some runs here. But it's always a great atmosphere. It's a great crowd. They get right behind you. And I'm sure we're in for a fantastic week.
Thanks as ever for your time. Good luck this week.
Cheers, thank you.
You were trying to drag it back at the end there, weren't you?
Well, he's a brilliant player. It's always fascinating to me to listen to the great players talk in depth and in detail about their game. And he spoke really well there. And interestingly, I think he's the best England player I've seen. I reckon the 4 best are Gooch, Gower, Peterson and Root, and I think he's probably just about the best of them all.
You mentioned his dismissals at Lords, and he was talking about he's normally pretty good at not following the ball. Actually, he did here, didn't he?
Yeah.